Howdy friends, fellow outdoorsmen, lovers of all things Western. Welcome back to In the Wild Outdoors with Brent and Jesse, where we bring you stories and insight from around the West, particularly from the sphere of Western big game hunting. We got another great episode for you today. This is the Wild Outdoors. Hello, brother. How you doing?
Good, you?
I think I'm all right. I'm well traveled.
Yeah, you've been all over.
Yeah.
West Coast, huh?
Yeah. I've been out to Oregon recently, and a lot of miles. But you drive a lot.
Yeah.
You make a lot of miles.
I make a lot of miles.
Yeah. And you just had bear hunting season.
Bear season.
And you knocked them dead.
We did very well.
Yeah. So
Yep.
we're going to talk more about that, but yeah.
Yeah, we did pretty well with the bear hunting this spring, and now we've kind of moved into scouting season.
Yeah. Yep.
Putting a lot of miles on the pickup.
Yeah.
Tires.
It's getting to be the time of the year where I look forward to fall a lot. Probably just because it's so hot, But then I think maybe I can get out and take a little bit of a break. But
My house, you have to wear a jacket in the morning and in the evening. It's pretty nice. We don't have any mosquitoes. It's kind of cool up there. I think when Tyler and I was out last night, it was 48 degrees or something like that just before dark.
Yeah. Well, you talk about somebody from cold country, and we know Woodruff and Randolph is kind of one of the, epicenters of the cattle industry for Utah, for the West, and right there on the Utah-Wyoming border. And the Weston family that lives up there, these are 8 or 9 brothers. They all ranch, and they've been there forever. This is like 4 or 5 generations of ranchers in that valley, 6 generations of ranchers in that valley, and they're the salt of the earth. And one day, this is my introduction for our guest today. One day, Sim Senior calls me up and he says, "Hey, we've had a deal up here where the kid that's working for us, who happens to like your music. This is the third supporter of my music, It's my mother, you, and then this kid." And he says he got piled up pretty good, and he's down at U of U Hospital. Wondered if you might go down and play some songs for him. And the Westons, they call and I go to running. So down there I went, and I walked in, and of course Kaden was there. He was, he had one tube in his lung and several in his arm, and his mother was sitting there kind of on the edge of her seat, And I've done this before, and his dad was there too, and they were, just hoping he'd pull through. And I thought, the best thing I can do is get him, because I knew he had a lot of broken ribs and a punctured lung. I thought, best thing I can do is get him laughing. And so I started, I don't even know what I said, but I started some smart aleck comment and try to get some giggles in the room, And I get around the curtain there, and this kid's looking at me like, man, when I get out of here, I am going, to split you from head to toe, man. And I knew right then, man, me and this guy are going to be pals, and we've hit it off. But man, it is a pleasure to introduce one of my best friends, a little brother from another mother, talented guy. He's a cowboy, happens to also be a trapper, and just one of the greatest guys I've ever known. This is my good buddy Kaden Miner from Woodruff, Utah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh man,
happy to be here. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Been wanting to have you since we started this, all 9 episodes of course.
Yeah, I told Jesse that things aren't looking real bright for the In the Wild Outdoors podcast if they've already hit the bottom of the barrel and come up with me. So
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Got a good horseman in here, and I got to see you. I think the first time I seen you in concert was at the Copper Nickel here in Ogden. Yeah, that was great. Great concert.
Yeah. Yeah, but man, you remember that day that I walked in there. You tell that story better than I do, but
yeah, you want to hear the real version?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what got y'all messed up?
Well, when I grew up in the city and kind of always wanted to be a cowboy, and so started working on this ranch, and I'd rode a few colts and had a few ornery colts, and I thought, man, I can ride with anything with hair, and always wanted to be kind of a big, tough, strong cowboy, and you can look at me and see I'm not very many of those attributes, but so I tried my hand at the stock saddle bronc riding, and those horses that are bred to buck, they do it a little harder and faster than a colt does. And so I come off and got stepped on my ribs here, and I broke, I think it was 7 or 8 ribs, punctured my lung, and so I had to take a little expedited trip to the hospital, and excuse me, they went in and plated. If I broke 8, they plated 7 of them. If I broke 7, they plated 6 of them. Anyways, cut me open and put me back together and had that chest tube in there, and I had a nerve blocker and kind of an epidural, from here to here. So I really didn't feel it a ton. I mean, it hurt, but it wasn't like I could feel it all.
Mm-hmm.
And
now he tells me
the day they took that nerve blocker off, they didn't really mess with my pain meds much. They were like, well, let's just see where you're at. And so I was like having a real rough day. I was in a bad mood. And Brent shows up and he knocks on the door, and he opens up the door and he says, "Is this the place where they keep the wounded bronc riders?" And I thought, yeah. And I was on my phone, and I was just mad. I didn't even look up, sulked up. I thought, oh great, here comes another doctor with a sense of humor that thinks he's, funny. And my mom's like, oh yeah, come on in. She's like, aren't you gonna tell him to come in? I'm like, it's a doctor, he's gonna come in anyways. They knock, they don't care, they're coming in. And so he walks in and says that. I just roll my eyes. I didn't even look up, And she's like, hey, are you gonna look up? So I look up. I'm like, that's Brent Hill. Maybe they did up my pain meds. Maybe this is one of them Percocet dreams. And he come in here and he slapped me on the shoulder. I thought, no, that ain't Percocet. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty humbling, and could have died right there and been happy with it.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, it meant a lot to me, and I'll bet you Brent's regretted that ever since. I've kind of been bothering him ever since, but I really appreciated that. So.
Oh man, you're a blessing to me. I can tell you that. Of all, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of artists, and you've been so so great to. I've got more gigs from you than I think any other person that I've ever known. Not even just an artist, but man, you've reciprocated that tenfold for sure. But yeah, I mean, you've got all of these things. You're a cowboy, you're a singer-songwriter, you're a trapper, and you and I also have a connection in our love for Northern Idaho and that country, because you went up there and served an LDS mission a number of years ago, and so we've just got so much that we connect on. And you work for people that I admire. The Westons are just the greatest people. Talk to us about the Westons. Tell us who really they are, and Circle H, and how did you meet them?
Yeah, when I come off my mission, I had a ranch down, or I went and worked on a ranch down in southern Utah for a fall, and then come back, moved home. My folks live here in Heber, Utah, and kind of had a friend of a friend. My aunt is friends with my boss's cousin's wife's, kind of one of those, I know somebody who knows somebody who's married to somebody who's looking for somebody to work, type of deal. Kind of all just really meant to be when you look back at it.
Yeah.
So I moved up there in March of 2019. So I've been up there 6 years now. Quite the learning curve, when you go there and you get kind of tossed into the deep end a little bit, but they're great guys. I work for a father and son family. So the Westons, like I said, they come from England in the 1800s, and they settled Lake Town, Utah, there on the shores of Bear Lake, and then so they've got the ranch there, and then they moved over the hill to Randolph in that Bear River Valley there. And they've ranched since they got here, type of deal. And I want to say there's 5 or 6 brothers that my my boss has, like, I believe there was 5 or 6 brothers at one time, and that's what all of them did. I mean, they all ran their own place. You know, they kind of split the family, the big family deal, and they all kind of got a little part so everybody could grow, and kids and kids could have a place to go. You know.
Yeah.
So I worked for Sim Weston Jr. and Senior, yeah, they're great. You know, they're patient with a hired guy that isn't always the smartest hired guy. You know. Especially when you're trying to figure stuff out, you know, tractors break and you run into stuff and you get stuck. And
well, your winters up there. I mean, 2 winters ago, 2023, you would have been there.
Yeah.
Man, it was like Siberia. It was so bad. I would come through there. I remember I was thinking about that today on my way down, you know, from Daniel. Thinking, man, I remember that, you know, thinking about you going to be here and thinking about driving through there and how, you know, the snow over top of the fences and the wind just blowing 40 miles, you know, it's on the temperature on the screen in your truck, you know, it's 45, 50 below, and the cows out there, how you keeping them, you know?
Yeah,
like
you know, and that's not real unheard of in a winter up there. You know, we're kind of a winter country. It's not unheard of to see 40, 50 below. Generally, you'll see it once or twice in a year, in a winter. What really killed us that year was it just hung on so long.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and like, it was, I remember I went and played a gig there in April, the 2nd of April. We start calving on the 20th of March. And generally it's still winter there, but it's not like 40 below winter, you know. That year it was. We still had snow that was waist deep. And on the 3rd of April of 2023, it come in and snowed 1.5 feet. I mean, we lived in the heifers all night long.
What was the percentage of calf crop loss in 2023?
You know, I'm not sure what we had for that year, but I know there was guys in the area in the county there that had close to 50%. You know, of a calf crop loss. That's the way we make our money. That's what we sell in the fall.
Yeah.
You know, when you break your back, you sleep in them, you live in them all day, all night when it's that cold, and I mean, you still can't win. You know, you're
right.
Yeah.
And you know, you're over my career in the oil field. You know, I worked in Whitney Canyon.
Oh yeah.
East Painter, and it's cold. That country's cold. Like anybody says that it isn't. Well, the whole area, you know, Big Piney, LaBarge, you know, all that country, Kemmer, all of that stuff over to Church Butte, you know, and Little America. It's all cold in there, but that valley where you was is just, the snow gets deep and it's cold. Like it gets cold at Daniel. You know, we do get 40 below too, but we don't have any wind in the winter. Like you guys, like the wind blowing, you know, 30, 40 miles an hour down there where you guys are. We don't get that wind up there at my place, you know. And it's a whole different thing, you know, out feeding horses or whatever, mature horses, than it is calving at the same time, you know. So, yeah.
You know, and the other thing about that year that just made it so tremendously awful is, you know, we can turn our cows out on the range, you know, on grazing May 1st generally. We can turn about half of them out on public ground. We still had 2.5 feet of snow May 1st.
Right.
And so the BLM was like, you guys ain't coming out here. There's nothing to eat. And so not only did people go broke on the front half buying hay, you know, to try and feed into middle of May, we were still feeding, you know, a full feed with snow on the ground. Then there was no recoup of the cost later in the year because
the calf crop's gone.
You're trying to make it do on 50%. You know.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember driving through there a bunch of times, you know, that year, because that's when I had first was starting Saddlehorn up in the Palisades. So I was through there all the time. Sure. I was staying in Afton. I had all my livestock in Afton with Eli Hale over there, and had my RV in Afton. And I was driving through there all the time, you know, because one day the road would be closed coming from Kemmer around, and I'd have to go around through Randolph or whatever. Oh, the winter was just horrible. Like, you know, all the winters that I've spent up there in Whitney Canyon and everything, I've never seen one like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in the midst of all of this, you've started a family. You got married. You married a gal from Randolph.
Yeah,
Great
I'm a
lady.
local now.
Yeah, Yeah, you've sunk your roots pretty deep there.
That's right.
Yeah. Baby girl's name again is?
Ivy.
Yeah.
Ivy Joe. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She'll be 10 months next week. Yeah, just kind of started crawling.
Yeah.
Wife made me go around and put all my guns back in the safe, and pick up after myself. So
Yeah.
it's been a little bit of adjustment, but man, she's fun.
Yeah.
She's kind of a daddy's girl. So it's pretty fun.
How does this affect your cowboy and you got to have a perspective and got to have a mindset to be a working cowpoke and get on a young horse every day and, get into that climate. I mean, how does this affect your mindset as a cowpoke?
Yeah, you just kind of hope that you can make all the ends meet, I'm just pretty grateful to be where I am with who I am, if I've got a gig or if I've got a family deal, I can be like, hey, I gotta be gone today or whatever, and the Westons are very good about, being understanding about that. And I try not to abuse it,
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm so grateful that I'm living in an area that I would have killed to grow up in,
Yeah.
And I'm in an industry, for lack of a better term, that I'm hoping will really raise good kids. You know what I mean?
Oh, big
Get
time.
them out on the ranch, get them out on a horse, teach them how to work, get them a little uncomfortable and let them know that it's not the end of the world to be out in the cold or.
So did you grow up in Heber?
Didn't. I actually grew up down in Pleasant Grove, American Fork, that area
okay.
there. Yeah, my dad worked there along the Wasatch Front. Had to travel quite a bit, so we had to be pretty close to the airport.
Gotcha.
When I was in high school, when I was 16, we moved to Heber. My mother's from there. That's what my family kind of settled that area. They're Midway and Walsburg, that country there. So, and it was like I'd buck my bridle off at 16. Heber's changed a lot in the last 10, 11 years.
I'm sure you recognize the main street in Heber, but you get up to Midway and it's completely changed.
Yeah, it's a wreck. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like a breath of fresh air. Even just moving there, when I was 16, I could kind of have a little more freedom, and go do the trapping deal, do a little more hunting deal. Never really did sports in high school. Never really did anything like that. I always figured there was something that needed to be killed rather than a ball that needed to be chased.
I know that.
So I figured you'd understand. But
I played a little bit of ball, but yeah, I tried football one year, and they made me run a lot of uphill sprints because I was gone hunting. And they said, well, we need to reevaluate whether we're going to be hunting or playing football.
Yeah.
I think they had too many kids that were breaking on the opposing teams too.
Right.
Jesse was playing.
Yeah. I know the feeling.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So how did you get writing songs and playing guitar and singing, and how did that all start?
I took a guitar class and I learned a D chord in school. And I was in 7th grade, I believe it was. Learned the D chord and kind of monkeyed around with it, and I've kind of just had to teach myself everything else. Drew a lot of inspiration from Ian Tyson, Chris Ledoux. You've been obviously a huge inspiration to me.
That's what's holding you back.
Right, yeah. Well, I don't want to come on your podcast and just feel like I'm, sucking up here. But, the changing moment in my life was when I was on a scout camp and you had just released Equine. And one of my scout leaders, for some odd, he had gone and seen you live and picked up this album. And he's like, oh, Kaden, you got to listen to this guy. He's a cowboy, you're going to love this. So he plugged in Equine in the truck there. And that first line, Stormy throws her head, and I just I was like, this is what I'm meant to do in my life, the cowboy deal anyways, I wasn't playing by then, but anyway, so.
There's a lot of Rich County inspiration in, Rich County, Utah inspiration in that record.
Yeah. In fact, in your liner notes on the Equine album, you're standing in front of the buck and shoot that I come out of. The day I got busted up. So kind of just a small world deal. But anyway, so I kind of played taught myself how to play, and just played country songs, covers, When I went on my mission for the church, like you mentioned, all of my ways that I cope with stress, go out in the hills, go shoot your gun, go ride your horse, you can't do any of that on a mission. And so I sat there in the MTC there in Provo in the Missionary Training Center, and I was looking out the window and I could see right up Provo Canyon where I lived. And I thought, something's got to give here. I'm either going to jump out this window or I got to figure something out. So I started writing poetry and writing cowboy poetry and, short stories and stuff just to give me something, a break, from like going from being kind of a wild, free spirit to living in a cell.
Yeah. It's
not a cell, but, it feels like a cell when you're there. Anyways, and so I started writing cowboy poetry and stuff, wrote it the whole way through my mission, and then about 3/4 of the way through my mission, I ended up borrowing a guitar from a member of the church up there in Colville, Washington, and sat around and we were picking all night with some other missionaries there, and we just started writing songs, with my buddies. And then I kind of thought, maybe there's something to this, So I kind of started writing my own songs and stuff, and then never really did too much with it. Didn't really know where to take it, what to do with it, until we kind of got hooked in together after my wreck. After I kind of realized, okay, maybe I'm not going to be such a stud bronc riding, and I'm going to have to figure something else out. So kind of started my in-laws have been a huge help. My wife, my father-in-law, and all my brother-in-laws have been.
He's
huge.
a guitar player.
Yeah, he's a guitar player as well. They were a huge, kind of a confidence booster to me. Because everybody thinks they're good. I mean, when you're singing in the shower, you're like, that was a good performance. That I put on right there.
Until you're about 45. I'm 49, and I've been realizing the last 4 years that
your shower concerts aren't as great as you thought.
Yeah.
Well,
nor are the live ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll bet. Anyway, so they kind of helped me, get a little self-confidence in the fact that, hey, maybe you could make a run at this, with your songwriting deal and
Yeah.
you're okay, you're good enough that, maybe people would come see you, so anyways.
I think the thing that I appreciate about your music and about your perspective and, just even your performance, is I do feel like there's that musical lineage, that goes back to Tyson,
Absolutely.
And Ian being sort of the godfather of contemporary cowboy music and songwriting. And then, I think Murph is another guy that, Michael Mark Murphy and Red Stiegel and, guys that have written songs about contemporary issues and cowboy life and ranch life in the West. And I feel like you're a part of that lineage, which I obviously have tried to be part of as well. And I think one of the things that, for me, that has meant the most in my career, music career and my music endeavors, is you winning the Buck Ramsey scholarship at Alpine, Texas. And I can't even talk about that, So Buck was such an inspiration, and he had this remarkable tenor voice. He had a wreck and was stove up in a wheelchair, and sing, playing a D35 Martin or a D18 Martin or something, and singing "Good Night, Lovin' Trail" there at Elko when I'm a little kid in the audience, and he was just such a strong inspiration to me getting going, and what is it, 30, 40, 35 years later, you and I are down at Alpine, Texas. You were there that year, I think.
Yeah, I flew in there.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I love Alpine, Texas. I like that show there.
That's a great gathering.
And just, the greatest people that put that on that are so interested in the future of it.
Yeah.
And I could hardly contain it when you got up there and got that Buck Ramsey scholarship, because feeling like I'd played a little bit of a role in getting you going, and then he was such an icon for me. But tell us what was it like to get that boost? That would have to be a huge confidence boost.
I had gone out there and, and I, there at the gathering, they had kind of a taste of the gathering, they call it, and so they had a lot of the artists in the lineup. They had them go out and play one song, you know. And I was the last artist, and I thought, oh, yeah, they know to put me last, you know. That way everybody's already headed to the popcorn stand by then, you know. So I went out and played. I played a song called "Drifted Snow," a song that a buddy of mine, Daryl Holden, and I wrote about the bad winter of '23, you know, that we just talked about. Anyways, I was going out there playing, and I look up, and through them bright lights you could barely see, but I mean it was a packed amphitheater there at the college, and I thought, geez, there's a lot of people here, you know. Try not to let that bother you. And so I got out there and I was playing and playing. Man, I thought I played the song so good. And on the last little riff, I hit the wrong note on the last note of the song, and I was like, all right, there it is. You know, leave it to me. I couldn't have a decent performance. So I was just shaking my head. Got done. They all cheered and applauded. I went around backstage, and I was like, kind of, yeah, all right, well, at least I'm par for the course. You know, I'm gonna be consistently poor, but. So I'm standing back there, and some guy comes up to me and goes, "Hey, they need you back out front." I'm like, "No, I just went." I'm like, "We're good," you know. He's like, "No, Kay needs you out front." Kay Knoll, that one of the honchos there that puts on the gathering, sweet lady, and she's out there, and they're talking about. So I walk back out there, and I'm kind of like, "Uh-oh, you know, what have I done now?" And they present me with that award, and I kind of didn't really quite understand what was going on, just because they surprise you with it, you know. And so I'm standing out there, and this guy walks up and presents me this award, presents me this plaque, and it says the Buck Ramsey Award, you know, the scholarship for that year. And I thought, wow, what a cool, you know, what a cool deal. Pretty honored, pretty humbled to be given this, you know, and what a sad thing for our genre, you know, that I'm the best they could come up with for that award. But anyways, you know, it kind of hit me backstage, you know, what a cool deal. And then I was able to meet Amanda, Buck's daughter, you know. And at the time, I kind of had a red beard. I had my beard grown out and it's red. And she told me, she says, "Man, I just, for a second there, if I looked up there and looked away," she said, "I would have thought that you were my dad. Like the way that I see the pictures, he's kind of had a redder beard when he had it, and the pictures I see of him as a young man, you know, kind of, you look similar." Anyway, she says, "I thought that was so cool," and she said, "I just have to laugh. He could not make it through a song without hitting a wrong note somewhere. So I just had to laugh. When you hit that wrong note, I knew you were getting the award. And so I just had to laugh. I was just like, oh man, what a tribute to my dad." You know, I thought, sorry, I couldn't have done better. But you know, it was just, she's such a genuine lady, and it was pretty humbling. You know, it was very humbling and quite a boost of confidence, you know. I try not to be overconfident. You know, nobody likes a guy that thinks he's got it all figured out. So it's always better to err on the humble side. But you know, it was very humbling for me.
Music biz and cowboying will keep you humble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you have to worry about that. Yeah. But no, that's a great moment. You know, Buck Ramsey is an icon and a historic figure, and a legendary guy from the Panhandle of Texas at Cowboy.
And a hero.
Yeah, he wrote a poem called Anthem, which I think is probably one of the most important contemporary pieces of Western literature there is. Yeah, you deserve that award.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, in every possible way, and obviously the kind of artist that we need in this genre so desperately. And I just you know that I'm obviously behind you 1,000%. You're also a heck of a trapper. I know you don't like to think of yourself that way, but you know, this is another means of helping the ranch world, and I guess probably a stress reliever for you in the wintertime in Rich County, Utah.
Yeah, a little extra spending money. Yeah. I like to trap bobcats mostly.
Mm-hmm. You're a good one. You're a really good trapper.
I catch a few. Yeah.
You know,
get lucky.
You've trapped.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard.
It's tough. There's an art to that. There's a long learning curve.
But the best thing, I miss about it, I don't get time to do it anymore, but just getting out in the mountains.
Oh, man.
And,
You learn so much.
and you get to go and just gets you away and clears your mind. And, you get out in the West and
Yeah.
get to do it. And
How long did it take you to become a good trapper where you're catching consistently all winter, which is what you do?
I trapped all through high school, trapped some beaver, a lot of raccoons and stuff. I tried my hand for bobcats when I was in high school there. Never caught a bobcat, caught a mountain lion, and that's, kind of a wild experience when you got to try and let one of them go. But then I kind of fell out of it for a little while. Like I talked about the learning curve with the ranching deal, it was pretty much all I could do to just get home, go to bed, get back up, and learn more about it. You know what I mean? Trying to just catch up, for lack of a better term. A couple of years ago, there was a bobcat that had been coming down in towards Randolph eating on roadkill deer. My father-in-law has some tags. My brother-in-law has some hounds. So they're like, hey, we got to go up there and see if we can get this bobcat shot, or whatever. I thought, I didn't even think about them being around, And so it kind of sparked that fire in me a little bit, And then we actually saw the bobcat. And I was like, oh, they do exist, like they're actually a real thing. Didn't have any tags that year. And to be honest with you, I just went home and researched so much. There's a website called trapperman.com. It's kind of a forum where trappers from all over the U.S. can get on and just swap tricks, trade ideas and stuff. And so there's a bobcat page that's like 30 pages long, all just dedicated to trapping bobcats. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to figure this out. So I read that. I'd sit at home when I'd be going to bed. I'd sit there and scroll on my phone. My wife would be so mad. She'd be like, can you shut that off and go to bed? I'm like, well, I got it, studying. And so that next year we got some tags. I believe it was actually the winter of 23, so had a remarkable snow year, which helped push a lot of cats down out of the high country, and everything was just hungry. When it's 40 below for 2-3 weeks straight, critters got to eat.
Yeah.
And so my father-in-law has a really good idea where everything is. He grew up there. He knows where every rock ledge is. There's another guy there in Randolph, Ron Hoffman. He's a fur man, a trapper. And so they both helped me a lot, saying, hey, up this canyon there's a rock ledge. Because the deal is with these leg traps, winter's not easy on them. They freeze down, and when they're froze down, an animal can step right in them, and it doesn't go off till noon the next day when it warms back up, and then your trap snaps, and you're like, oh, okay, Anyway, so you try to look for them rock ledges, kind of a little overhang where they're dry underneath. The wind can't blow the snow underneath there. Those bobcats like to be in the dry anyways. So you set your setup in there. I usually run exposed traps anyways. A lot of guys that trap coyotes and stuff, and in places where the winter's not quite so mean, you bury your trap, and that way they have no idea that it's there. A bobcat doesn't care, really. If you have enough flash, enough, tinsel or a CD hanging, that's what I use all brand CDs for. I hang them in trees for bobcat flags. And so go out and buy all of Brenn's catalog.
Finally a purpose for me.
Yeah, go out and buy all of Brenn's CDs if you're interested in bobcat trapping. They work great as bobcat flags. But anyways, you just set that trap down, and then you block it in so that really the only place that cat has to step is right on the pan of your trap. And then just wait. If there's a bobcat track if you see a track, if you set on a bobcat track, he's coming back. And usually it's kind of crazy. They'll come back and walk track for track a month later. Sometimes it's 2-3 weeks later. I waited on a bobcat that first year. I set the trap on Thanksgiving Day. I didn't catch it. He come back 2 times and I missed him 1 time, and I didn't catch him till Valentine's Day. Check a lot of empty traps that first year, but there was a lot of cats around, and I got pretty lucky.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a numbers game.
Yeah.
I'm going to date myself here, but we didn't have CDs when I was trapping. We had to use
cassette tapes.
Yeah. When I had time to trap, it was a cassette tape. We used orange flagging.
Yeah, I actually just go to the dollar store at Christmas time and get tinsel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I run all my a lot of my traps I run on the drags here. You see I've got 10 feet of chain here with swivels in it so that it can unbind, and then this big iron drag, so when a cat gets caught, they get to take it away. And then they head for the nearest cedar tree generally. And then they don't sit there and tear up your set or whatever. So I just tie that tinsel right onto the chain, and then I can check from the road, and it saves my little fat behind from walking into a lot of bobcat sets every day. Go up there and check them. I set where I can see my trap so I can make sure I don't have rabbits or anything in there. But basically, if you notice that your tinsel's gone, your flag, you're like, oh yeah, I got something. Generally it's a raccoon. But
what's the best way for guys to get started in trapping if they don't know anything about it but they're interested in it? What would you suggest? How do they get going?
You could. Every state generally has a trappers association.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot to help with trappers' rights. Keep the antis at bay. Really fight for your right to be out there and enjoy the outdoors. YouTube, man, there's no secrets.
Yeah.
50, 60 years ago, when fur was actually worth something, that was how guys were making a living, and you had to be. They weren't giving any secrets out. They learned the hard way. So were you.
Yeah.
Now it's just people are just so passionate about keeping the art alive.
Yeah.
They're just willing to give out whatever information. Trapperman.com, like I say, anything you want to know is on there. It just takes a little bit of research, and then they can YouTube trapperman.com, and then your state association. There's a lot of trappers around. If you know a guy that's in your area, you've heard whisperings of, or everybody kind of knows them, especially in these rural areas with a lot of livestock. They're kind of a big deal. The trapper, you gotta have one of them around.
Yeah.
And so if you just reached out to one of them, more times than not, they're gonna be like somebody that wants to get into this, and keep this going. Man, they'll generally bend over backwards, to help do whatever they can. So
yeah, plenty of things to trap. We got our deer herds way down. Obviously, lions and things kind of follow the decline.
Yeah, up in that country, the state flew. Just almost every day for the last couple of years, and they've killed. You don't hardly even see a coyote anymore. The bobcat numbers are down. Bobcats follow the cottontail rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't been a ton of rabbits around the last couple of years in that country. So yeah, numbers are down a little bit. They're still around if you want to, work for them and stuff. But the state, what's the word I'm looking for? Wildlife program, the predator control. They've really knocked it in the coyotes and everything up there for that way.
One of my buddies he's kind of the inspiration behind Wolf Reaper, and he was from Orofino.
Gotcha.
And he he really had got to a point where he was trapping wolves, in the Selway and doing pretty well. And then they started aerial flights, shooting wolves, in the Selway, which probably needed to happen. And the guy got to a place where he got really good at it. He invested money in traps and everything, and then all of a sudden, so sometimes that can steal the trapper's thunder. Yeah,
absolutely.
A little bit.
Yeah.
You got any trapper songs? You working on maybe that's one we need to write or something?
Yeah, we ought to. I've got one about trappers, kind of more about the mountain men era. I listened to a book, an audio book that the Meteor crew put out, the what do they call it? Their history university or whatever, about the mountain men period. So I wrote a song about the mountain men, but yeah, I don't have anything about modern day trapping. I had a guy send me some lyrics on one of these state Facebook pages. He's like, hey, is anybody on here musically talented? I actually just told AI to write a song about bobcat trapping and come up with these lyrics, wondered if anybody could put it to music. And I read them, and I was like, I don't know. Yeah. Something in me wouldn't let me put it to music just because it was AI. You know, you get something's got to be sacred.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, man, I just can't tell you what a blessing it is to have you as a friend, and you know, to have been involved in your music journey here, and I want to be involved along the way. I believe in you as an artist and as a human being. You know, I love the Westons, and I'm pretty grateful that somebody like you with your talent is able to tell that story firsthand. I mean, it's absolutely what the West needs, you know, and ranching and agriculture, you represent that so well.
Oh, thank you.
Everything you do. You've got a song here that you're going to play for us that I guess is not about trapping or cowboying, but it is about fatherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I actually wrote this one with you, obviously. What was it, last year? We had just found out, my wife and I had just come to Ogden, found out we were having a girl. I only have brothers. I've got 4 younger brothers. I got maybe a few cousins that are my age that are girls, you know, and never really have been able to figure out the female species. And so I was pretty nervous about having a daughter, you know, kind of a rough around the edges guy. And I was telling Bren, we went over to Bren's house thereafter and had dinner, and I was kind of crying the blues like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And he says, yeah, well, wait till your daughter's 15, 16, and the boys kind of start coming around. And I thought, well, yeah, thanks for that. Now I've got to worry about that too, you know, but I'll quit complaining. Well, it was that same week. My boss, Sim Jr., he's got a daughter that was 15, 16, about the same age as your daughter. And we were turning horses loose there at the barn one night. I could hear kids screaming and laughing and playing over in his yard there next to the barn. I says, oh, looks like you guys got friends over, you know. I thought it was one of his younger kids had some friends over. And right then his daughter and her boyfriend pulled up on the four-wheeler. And he scowls. He says, he ain't a friend of mine. And I was like, there it is. Yeah. So I called Bren the next day, texted him. I says, hey, listen, we got to write this song together, you know. And what was it? It was. We started at 1 o'clock, just over text. I sent him just some ideas, and by 1:38, Bren had the finished demo. I had the demo waiting for me.
Perfect timing. I was driving from somewhere, so it was a perfect time to focus on it. I
had poor cell phone service, and by the time that I could read the last text,
and I think my daughter had been just asked to her first dance. Yeah. So I was very angry about it.
So it was hot. I mean, it was fresh. Yeah. It was fresh. By the time I could read the verse that he just sent me, another one would pop up, you know. I was like, I better get going on this, or I'm not going to get anything on this. So I really appreciate you helping me out with this song. This is called Not Somebody's Daughter. Ready? I was cleaning my 45 when he came through the door. I knew damn well and good what he had come here for. So I tossed him a bullet. I said, son, keep this in mind. Those fly one hell of a lot faster 1 minute after 9. I said, you ain't no friend of mine, so if you take her out tonight, you better be back by 9. You better treat her right. You might be her new crush, but I'll always be her father. Don't you ever forget that she ain't just somebody's daughter. I said I was the hands that brought her to this big mean And from now until forever, she'll be my only baby girl. She's on loan from God, and I have promised him that I'll give my life for her. So hear these words again. I said you ain't no friend of mine, so if you take her out tonight, you better be back by 9. You better treat her right. You might be her new crush, but I'll always be her father. Don't you ever forget, she ain't just somebody's daughter. And in another place and time, son, you just might be a close and trusted friend of mine, but you're way too much like me. Well, his eyes got big and honest. It was a look I'd seen before in a mirror in a hallway by my father-in-law's door. And it's the same look that I'm seeing as I walk her down the aisle. And I pass him her hand as I force my face into a smile. I say you ain't no friend of mine, you better guard her with your life. If you ever hear her crying, remember that your wife, she's my precious baby girl, and I'll always be her father. Don't you ever forget, she ain't just somebody's daughter. Don't you ever forget, she ain't just somebody's daughter. Oh, oh.
Oh man, that's your song.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
a great
Appreciate it.
song.
Thanks for your help on it.
Hey, we're gonna play. Me and you are gonna play at Rich County Fair again.
Yeah.
I don't know the date. Maybe you do.
August 14th.
Okay.
Yep, there in Randolph.
In Randolph at the park there.
Yep,
in
there
Randolph,
at the
Utah.
ballpark there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you got more
Maybe
music.
maybe Jesse can make a store appearance.
I will be there.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
I get off the 12th.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's why we schedule those that way.
Yeah.
You got more music coming. You've got Drifted Snow out on single and Not a Saint.
Yep.
And we're going to get this record finished one of these days.
Time and money.
Time and money.
Yeah, time and
Yeah.
money's all it takes.
Yeah, I know Not a Saint you recorded here at Oasis Studios. And
Yep.
yeah.
Big thanks to Tyler and Rich. Yeah. They did
Yeah.
an excellent job on it.
Yep. Man, we appreciate you being here and appreciate all you're doing. Keep the West alive.
Oh man, thank you. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me out,
Yeah.
and glad to meet you. And
Come up and trap some wolves.
gonna have
My
to,
house.
Yeah.
He's Kaden is,
We can figure it out together if
We
you
can
don't know how to
figure it out,
drought.
yeah, heck yeah.
I mean,
he'd been trying to win a hunt too, so
well, he better come go on one.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion too.
Yeah.
I'll keep buying tickets, you know. But if
Yeah.
we could put your thumb on the scale, you know. Now if I win one, everybody will think it's rigged.
Nah, it's not. Nah, it's definitely not. Folks, if you want to learn more about Kaden Miner and his music, go to kadenminer.com, KADENMINER.com. Is that right? No.
I don't have a website.
Oh, you don't
just
have a website.
Facebook.
Just
Yeah,
Facebook.
Just Facebook and Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
Just Facebook under my name,
Okay.
and then Kaden Miner Music.
Kaden Miner Music. KADENMINER is Kaden Miner. And you can find out when his gigs are going to be, and maybe even send him a message. And if you're interested in maybe helping get the record funded and on the way, I'm sure he would put it to good use. If you want to book your next adventure with an outfitter who does it right and cares about your success, go to saddlehornoutfitters.com. Book your next adventure with Jesse and his team. It's a great time. We've got fall coming up, and spring bear season in 2026 now, so you can learn more about how you can book your next adventure. And Saddlehorn Outfitters has a lot coming
We got a lot coming.
down the pike. That's good news. We're going to talk more about that in another episode. My music, Bryn Hill Music on the social sites. You can find me on any of your favorite streaming services. Again, thank you, especially today, double thanks to Rich Casperson, our producer here at Beautiful Oasis Studios in northern Utah. He's wearing two hats because Tyler is off studying music composition. We wish him the very best of luck, and we're squarely in his corner as well. We hope to see you again on another episode of In the Wild Outdoors with Bren and Jesse.